Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we're looking at a Tuesday night slate here, a little one with just 4 games here tonight in the NBA. In this one, we're taking a look at a pretty fun game, missing a bunch of stars, though. Sacramento is in Memphis taking on those Grizzlies. Also got a couple other videos up for you today, including our player props video that we'll look to stay super hot with you guys on. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content for you guys all season long, and our odds finder tool that you can go ahead and use to make sure you are getting the best juice on all those NBA bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this little slate and then talk all things Grizz and Kangs.
Yeah, 4 games, like you said. Stars out. You want to talk about stars out? The Nets are -8 at Philly, who's missing their 4 best players in that game. And we will break it down, looking for some betting angles in that one. Then we got the Kangs right now. They open at -1. It's -2.5 now, gaining some steam. That total's fluctuated between 233 and 231, right in the middle right now. The Pistons are gaining a little steam with Jokic out for the Nuggets again. They're +5.5. That's down from +7. And then the lowly Lakers +7.5 at the Suns. Chris Paul probably still going to be out there as all these stars just get ready for a nice Thanksgiving break. But yeah, we're talking Memphis right now without Ja Morant and without Desmond Bane. And you know, you can parse it however you want, like who's actually more important. The numbers have actually shown that Desmond Bane has been more important for this team recently. I mean, they went on this incredible stretch without Ja last year, so that skewed it. But I mean, when they're both out, I don't know what you're going to say. Like their backcourt's in trouble here. Tyus Jones is a solid replacement, but I really worry about how they're going to defend Sacramento, which we talk about as the second best offense in the league. Very creative, getting great looks at all times. I mean, they're 11th in paint points on the season, but if you look more recently, they're second. They have 62 paint points per game in their last 3 here. They've won 6 in a row. Their offensive rating is an astronomical 129 in that span, and their defense is not coming along. It's 25th. So Memphis is probably going to be playing a lot of John Conchar here at the 2 or 3. And, I mean, for me, that means good offense and bad defense. I do like the over if you can get it down around 231, where it was a minute ago. We're at 232 right now. I mean, you can bet the over in Kings games until further notice. But both these teams are really poor defending the 3-point line right now. So even though they don't have Bane, they don't have their sniper, but Conchar is a really good 3-point shooter. Dylan Brooks, streaky. We'll see. Jaren Jackson Jr. back, also very streaky. But you know, Sacramento right now dead last in opponents' 3-point percentage in that 3-game span. Memphis not far behind at 28th, and they're 24th on the season. And Memphis allowing more paint points at home, 5 more per game, surprisingly. They're 18th in paint points on the season. That's gotten a little bit better with Triple J back, but also allowing the second most assists per game. And Sacramento, like I said, with that sophisticated offense, really spreading it around, getting good looks for guys like Weitzer and Malik Monk. And De'Aaron Fox is just on an incredible heater. You know, if this gets close down the stretch, I do like the Kings because right now he's number 1 in clutch points. They're number 1 in offensive rating, number 2 in net in the clutch, number 23 in defense, though, Josh. So the fact that Memphis hasn't been lighting it up in clutch time, and they won't have their guy and job or down the stretch, it doesn't scare me as much from an over. And Memphis 25th in fourth quarter points, but I think when you play this Kings team, the points are going to keep flowing down the stretch. So if you want a live bet over here, that makes sense just fine. And yeah, I mean, you just look at the immediate result. They've only not had Ja for 1 game here, a lot with Ball Bane's been out for 3 or 4. They went with a 104 pace against Brooklyn and went over there despite only having a 110 offensive rating. So in their last 4, I mean, they've crushed the Kings recently. In their last 4 have been lighting it up with a 123 offensive rating, and Ja hasn't even been efficient at all, 102. It's Bane who has a 137 offensive rating in that span. So, you know, meet me somewhere in the middle, give me a 118 offensive rating, and I do think Memphis does their part to get over here.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Is Memphis going to do their part to get over? It feels a little bit insulting to still only be 2.5. Like if we're all saying that this Kings team is for real, then why are they only 2.5 point favorites against a Memphis team that, while it was, strength in numbers last year, if you will, going 22-4 at one point without Ja Morant in the lineup? Couple things there. They still had Desmond Bane for all of those games. They had DeAnthony Melton for all of those games. And they had Kyle Anderson for all of those games as well. A couple of very important guys. DeAnthony Melton was averaging like 24 a game, 22 a game during that stretch without Ja. So that was a really important player that's also looking really good for Philly right now, who's depleted as hell, as you mentioned at the top of the show when you're going through the lines. So I don't hate the spread. In fact, I feel a little bit better about the spread because the question is Memphis going to come along for the ride with that offense? I know that you mentioned a couple of guys that, like, they're still deep, right? They still are going to put in a really good three-point shooter in Conchar. They're going to put in a serviceable NBA rotation guy in Santi Aldama, who might be, he's going to be a career NBA player now. He's proven that he can play in this league and can at least come off the bench, and right now is getting some starter minutes as well. So there are some guys for Memphis that you still feel decent about in these situations. It's not quite the same, like, how in Portland we talk about as soon as Dame's out, let's see what Anthony Simon's props are. It used to be in Memphis, as soon as Ja's out, let's see what Desmond Bane's props are. Let's see what DeAnthony Melton's props are. I'm not, like you said, the other guys left right now are just a little bit too inconsistent for me. And Dylan Brooks, for sure. I'm not even talking about him. My love for him has fallen, just decreased since his rookie season dramatically, as he's just so much, he doesn't know the player that he is, if you will, and that's the reason for his sort of lower 3-point percentage consistently. His below 40% from the field is Dylan Brooks right now, who's going to probably be their leading scorer again if it's between he and Jaren Jackson Jr. at this point. Brandon Clark is just sort of neutralized without a guy like Ja Morant. He's pick and roll hustle points all day, but there's really not that skilled guard in the game for Memphis tonight that makes me feel good about it. So that's why I like you said, you can take Sacramento team overs until further notice. We'll let you know if that offense starts sputtering and doesn't look as good as it has to the tune of nearly 130 points a game right now. But that's where I feel good about them winning this game as well. Yes, we talk about their 6-game win streak, and really they've won 7 of 8, and in those 8 games as well, it's pretty similar numbers to their last 6, where it's 130 offensive rating and roughly 116 defensive rating. That's still good enough to win by roughly 14 points per 100 possessions, as they've been winning by double digits outside of that loss or that win to Detroit, which is the only one that they failed to cover, depending on where you got that spread. Most people got it at about 10 points, and they won that game by 8. So they still came pretty close to covering a really large spread against a bad team. My point is, I'm not worried about their lack of offense for being able to cover this spread, and that's pretty much my preferred bet there. Everything that they're doing on offense, I don't think is stoppable by this Memphis defense, which is actually a little bit better with Ja in the game. I don't know that necessarily is a direct correlation at this point. In the 3 games that he's been out, they do have a slightly better defensive rating by about 2 points per 100. But it's all about the offense, and it's really the offense without Ja and Bane is like, come on, man, right? We talked about without Ja what they are this year as opposed to last year. 107 offensive rating versus 115 with him. It's the free throw attempts as well, right? 7 fewer a game. They actually get 8 fewer weirdly enough, they get 8 more free throw attempts per game when Desmond Bane is out. That's also in like a 3-game span. I'm really not too worried about that. It's mostly the lack of free throws when Ja is not in the game, right? And when Ja was in without Desmond Bane and they got all those free throw attempts, it makes a little bit of sense, right? Ja's not kicking as much as when he goes to the lane when he doesn't have Desmond Bane on the floor. So he's actually just forcing things into the hoop, getting himself to the line, and getting guys like, Steven Adams to the line, Jaren Jackson, etc. So the free throw attempts that aren't going to be there without Ja, the 3-point shooting that's not going to be there without Bane, I feel really good about Sacramento winning this game by 2 to 3 points, and might even consider taking them by about 5 and alternating that line to get closer to like plus 130, 135 on FanDuel right now.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little concerned. I mean, it's disrespectful. Maybe Memphis feels disrespected because you remember that game where they had their entire back 5 playing against the Suns, and they went out and go ahead and beat them by like 20 when they were plus 8 dogs at home. I mean, you look at their home game log, they've won 17 of their last 19 since the All-Star break last year at home. The only losses are to the Boston Celtics twice. I mean, they've beaten this Kings team 7 times in a row. Ja has missed one of the recent meetings. I would say this is not a large play for me. It's a test to see if the Kings are for real, if they're not just like lighting it up right now early in the season. And whether that offense can translate And you said you don't know if Memphis has a reliable playmaking guard. Tyus Jones has had a record assist to turnover ratio last year, the best ever. And him and Brandon Clark worked the Kings' second unit when they met earlier this season. They had 30 combined points off the bench. I think Memphis will be able to keep pace, which is why I do like the over, I think, a little more than trying to pick the winner here. Because I just don't know if the Kings are for real, if we can just start to lay money in a spot like this at Memphis. If this was in Sacramento, I'd be all for it. I just would throw a little cold water on betting big on the Kings win.
No, that's fair. I would also just say though, like when they win, they score more, right? They're 6-3 at home, 3-3 on the road. They're winning those home games by an average of 6 points. Their road games are pretty much even in terms of their plus minus there. But they also score a ton more points at home when they're winning, 124 at home versus 117.7 on the road, which is the only thing, right? That their team total sits at about 117.5 tonight, and Memphis at about 115 or so. So like, that line feels somewhat properly set for the road Kangs in terms of the total there. I think the line for them winning, I'm already buying my purple stuff, Nate. Like I'm already shooting the beam up into the sky after wins right now because I do believe in this team. I wanted to believe in this team, and as soon as they gave me any reason to, and when I say reason to, I don't just mean they won a bunch of games in a row. I mean how they won. You talk about the points in the paint. You talk about the resurgence of Domantas Sabonis as well, who in the first half of the season so far was at about 13 points a game and has gotten that all the way up to about 18, 19 a game during this 8 games that they've won 7 of 8. So yeah, the points and the wins seem to be correlated at home. I'm still going to feel good about them being able to win, even though it is on the road. I know Memphis is a great home team. This is a bigger test than that one that we talked about last time for them against Brooklyn, where they blew them out the water. And we predicted that they were going to win. We just didn't know they were going to win by scoring 153 points. I think this is going to be another time where we're pleasantly surprised that we put some money on the Kings, and that's what I plan on doing tonight. So
yeah, stars out, bets up. You say I have a hard time finding conviction on either side of this line because I don't think the Nets are going to go for blood here. Possibly because this is the front end of a back-to-back for both teams, and they've got Toronto tomorrow. I don't think they're going to play KD 38 minutes, for example. I think they know they need to save a lot more for a Toronto team that's far closer to full strength. At the same time, I think Ben Simmons, this is a perfect front-runner spot for Ben Simmons to keep building his confidence. It's exactly what they've been doing in the last 2 games, ramping him up. He had his best line of the season off the bench as they stunned everybody, including us, by beating Portland to end that road trip. He went 14-13-7 off the bench. Then they started him back home with Kyrie in the lineup, and he goes for 22-8-5. And I'm really intrigued at how low his props are still, because this is clearly like get ahead of the curve. Ben Simmons finally feels like he can attack again. I mean, he shot 89% from the floor in those 2 games, so it's not, almost all dunks. He's not. It's all he has to do: run the floor, take advantage of the extra attention on Kyrie and KD, and they're finding him. I mean, Royce O'Neal, has 20 assists in these last 2 games as well. The Nets starting to gel on offense. They didn't even necessarily need Kyrie to beat Memphis. But Ben Simmons is at 10.5 points, and the rebounds and assists is even more exploitable, 11.5, because he's filling it up. I mean, he's 6'10". He's gonna board a lot with the Sixers having absolutely nobody to score the basketball tonight. I mean, Shake Milton had a nice efficient game against Minnesota, kept them within distance as the number 2 to Embiid. Now he's got to be the number 1, and Joel Embiid has been absolutely carrying this team. So you might think, oh, their offense is going to dip and we're going to go under. I would throw a lot of caution on that because I think their defense is going to dip even more. They've gone over in their 3 of their last 4 because Embiid has been carrying that offense. But the one under, they held the Jazz to 98 points, the lighted up Jazz, because Embiid blocked 7 shots and scared probably 20 more from going in. They're 8th in points in paint points and 3rd in points overall allowed because mostly of Joel Embiid. But at home, they're allowing more paint points, and they're allowing the 8th highest percentage points off 2. So again, this just leads me to feel like Ben Simmons is going to get some really easy looks. And by looks, I mean dunks tonight. And he's going to get to flex at Philly. The crowd's going to boo him, but this is the opportunity they've been waiting for, right? They've held him out for so long to not put him in a situation where he could be, his fragile mental health could be put on the line, where he could literally be put on the free throw line and hear all those boos. And it's just like, no, this is going to be a relative cakewalk. Like, you're playing backups. The Sixers shouldn't have much fight. We can just feed Ben and get this monkey off your back, that you play your old team and you put up a decent line, and now you can just move on with your career and actually try to be a productive player for us.
and so the game theory in this one, because Philly's defense is good, right? Like, it's been the strength of their team this year so far. How much of that do you really just associate, right, and attribute to Joel? Because as you said, right, like it's a lot of it, right? It's a lot. So Brooklyn's 113.5 again feels a little bit safer. I know Philly really only needs to score 105 to come along. Brooklyn's own defensive rating isn't like in the toilet where it was last year, at close to like 28th, 27th. It's at least top 20, serviceable enough. I think the reemergence, whatever you want to call Ben Simmons' recent surge in success has a lot to do with it, right? And he's been flying around a lot more in a good way for them. That shows confidence individually for his defensive rating over the course of the last couple of games, back down to like 107. The guy that you want him to be in terms of the stopper, and the shots that he's taking, right? Like, I don't know, man, you don't got to worry about taking shots. You're a 6'10" power, or point guard, power forward, whatever. Like, why do you have to be able to shoot? The issue is who's on the floor with you, right? Yuta Watanabe, by the way, shout out, recent surge in his points. 3-point shooting is really what it matters for him, and why he's probably going to continue to get a few more minutes. I checked, his props are not available anywhere right now. I hope that changes in the very near future, because I think he's a crucial guy for them. As Seth Curry's and Joe Harris have struggled mightily so far, but Watanabe is at least able to make some threes for them, and that's what really matters, right? Because KD also hasn't been shooting the ball super well from three. That hasn't been his game. You're going to see Kyrie come back and probably be the majority of the threes that they put up should be coming from him. Occasionally Royce O'Neal's been getting a lot of corner threes as well, and has been good. He's been a little bit underwhelming on offense, but you know what you're getting with Royce. So that's another reason their defense is a little bit better, is him. So you got to keep him on the floor as well. And he's been able to stay on with Nick Claxton as well, which helps them when they need size. So things are turning around a bit for them. If it's really wild how contingent it is upon Ben Simmons' ability to be a serviceable and like above average NBA player. So I'm following your theory on that one. I don't want to touch the spread here at 8. I feel scared a little bit, as you mentioned, and it also does, like, if Philly is able to cover, it's because this game is at like 108, 104 or something like that, right? Like, it's not like they're going to be covering, in my opinion, like 122 to 117 or something to that effect, right? This is not a roster that can get you that amount of points right now with the amount of injuries that they have, and the guys that are going to be mostly handling the ball at this point, right? Like, for them, it's going to be about D'Anthony Melton really needing the ball in his hands the whole time, because I don't know who else you feel comfortable with. I mean, Shake and D'Anthony are your guards, and once they come out, do you want Danuel House running your offense alongside Matisse Thybulle? Like, I don't know how you generate points off of that unless you're playing solid defense enough to turn that into turnovers, turn that into fast break points. They've done that occasionally. It's interesting. It's like when Embiid's on the floor, it's all about just make sure that when we get down, he touches the ball at least once. When Embiid's not on the floor, it's all about get the ball down the floor immediately, because James Harden hasn't been there to control the offense either, which means it's been a Tyrese Maxey led offense in that regard, right? And that's taken on the pace has increased for them, which, by the way, both these teams play at such a slow pace that I don't know if that's going to be the case tonight. That's not the team that they're putting on the floor for the 76ers. It probably will be a little bit more of that Daryl Morey style offense with the guys that they have in there. Shoot a lot of threes, put Niang and PJ Tucker in as your bigs and put them in the corner. Paul Reed gets the occasional rim running play, right, with D'Anthony Melton or Shake, and that's pretty much your offense for Philly. And so I feel better about Brooklyn being able to like handle that. I do think they're going to win this game tonight. I don't know. They scare me in the 8.5 points. The 217 scares me because of Philly's ability to come along. So it is a little bit of a stay away, but it's at least worth talking about, because if you want to get a money line or any kind of bet where Brooklyn is favored by, let's say, like 2 or 3, that I feel a lot better about them covering.
I just think back to when someone asked KD after they crushed Philly in Philly on March 10th last year, and did it factor in that Ben Simmons was on the bench? He said, absolutely. We wanted to win for Ben. We wanted to bolster his confidence. We wanted to crush his former team, and they came out and it was 40-23 in the first quarter. It was never a game
like that.
After that. So, I mean, and they have every advantage in the world right now in this matchup. So now with Ben on the floor, they're going to bolster his confidence. And I think to your point, how are they going to do that? Keep up the pace, right? Because he can't score in the half court necessarily unless there's a breakdown.
True.
Which, with Kyrie out there now, there will be a lot of breakdowns because that's what he does. With PJ Tucker guarding Durant, probably, there's going to be not a great defender on Simmons individually, and without Embiid, there's not great rim protection. So I think, the Nets were 104 pace in this last game against the Grizz. I think they're willing to ramp that up for sure. The Sixers, even though they don't have Maxey, you look at their last 7 without Embiid, 114 points per game. And they tend to otherwise play around 108, 107 with a slower pace. I wonder, if they can keep up that pace to a degree, if they can get some pick and roll action going with Montrezl Harrell, get him going. I mean, I do worry about them coming along, so I think I would bet the Nets over, before the spread. But yeah, like I said, my money is on Ben Simmons, if only for the entertainment factor of let's see him go out there and play the heel and stick it to these Philly fans.
I'm with it, Dr. Revenge. I'm coming along for that. And I got to say, his props don't seem to have come along with how far we think he's already progressed this season, right? 10.5 points is what it should have been all season. I think at this point, he's going to be starting to get closer to that 15 a game, 8 boards, 6 assists, in that range. If he's in that range, dude, then this is a team to actually be reckoned with to a degree, because you've got the Swiss Army knife that you've wanted around Kyrie and KD. And that's a scary thought if it works out the way that they had intended originally. So let's see how many points they put up tonight. Let's see the style of play that they're able to use. I do think before we start giving this team any flowers and starting to ride it to the end of the season, let's see what they do in a situation like tonight that's going to be sluggish. That's not going to be necessarily the way they want to play, and they're going to have to sort of overcome some of that stuff. But Nate, let's go ahead and get into your props here on this little 4-game slate Tuesday night.
Yeah, I remember early in the season when people were under 9.5 points for Ben Simmons. That's free money. That is absolutely hammer that every single night. Well, now it looks like over 10.5 points and over 11.5 rebounds, assists might be free money for Simmons, who might finally have his confidence back. I mean, they've probably been in his ear all season, just being hey, just run to the rim, try to finish. If they cut you off, kick it out. You can do that. That's what you've been doing for years. That's how you were an all-pro. So in his last 2, he's averaging 18.5, 10.5 boards, and 6 assists, shooting 89% from the floor. Played well enough to move into the starting lineup in their last game when he had 22, and Kyrie didn't do much in his return, but opens up the floor a little bit more for Simmons to just play that slasher role. The Nets are getting more comfortable playing around KD, the always candid KD, who called out the rest of his teammates by name, and then apparently it worked because whatever he said behind closed doors, in addition to that, kind of inspired them, it seems like, to play their role, to be aggressive. Royce O'Neal playing out of his mind, Yuta Watanabe too, and Simmons, who like I said, his props are just really juicy right now. They're close to even money for those very low totals. He's plus 480 to get a double-double at FanDuel, which he did in his last game. 8 rebounds in a win gets you plus 250. We don't think there's any way Brooklyn loses this game without Joel Embiid, because I guess I buried the lead there. There's no rim protector for the Sixers. The fact they already allow more paint points and a high percentage of points off twos at home. And I think their defense is very, very dependent on Joel Embiid scaring shots, blocking shots, and protecting the rim. So I think Simmons gets some revenge on his former team here tonight, and I'm betting on it.
I love it. Yeah, I'm going to follow you on that for sure with Simmons tonight. There's a couple other things going on for him as he's put up in the last 3 16 points a game. 9 boards and 5 assists. That has been the sort of the emergence and the implementation of Seth Curry, Joe Harris, and Watanabe, who you mentioned. All 3 of those guys being in the lineup is huge for Ben Simmons, because you have to have shooting around him. KD, Kyrie, and then at least one other shooter on the floor, and Ben Simmons. Royce O'Neal has done the job for them as well down low enough. So, I like where this team is headed. I like the direction of it for them, especially because they've come so low that we've sort of readjusted our expectations. And I think Simmons at 10.5 points, that'll get adjusted up to the 15.5 that he's averaging in the last 3 to 4 games versus still assuming this is the guy that is not even going to shoot from inside 5 feet. He's shooting 89%. And just as importantly, as you mentioned, the amount of shots that he's taking, at least he's gotten that field goal attempts up to about 9 or 10 a game, as opposed to like 4, right? Which is when you feel great about taking under 10 points for him. So I'm going to go over on another guy here, Nate, who is just continuing to be one of the best point guards in the league this year, De'Aaron Fox. 25.5 points for him in the Kangs, riding that 6-game win streak. I'm going over 26.5. That's minus 105 on FanDuel. I love that it's pretty much even money in a game that I know you love points. I like points, and I like the Kings a lot. The last time he's played Memphis, De'Aaron, just throwing a few things at you, 27 points versus them earlier in the season. It was 125 to 110 home loss for the Kangs. Hadn't really found themselves yet. I think we can expect a little bit more from them tonight. On the season, he's at about what his prop is tonight, 25.5 on 56, 38 splits, which I really like. The 5 3-point attempts that he's shooting a game and hitting 2 of them is huge for this team. His 30% usage rate, and the number 1 clutch point guard, right? Best clutch numbers in the league for any point guard right now. His last 3 on the road where they're playing, which I feel really good about, 32.5 points a game on a 30.7% usage rate. That was against teams that are a bit bigger too. That teams that can that are going to be rolling out some big guys, which probably is going to be the case for the Grizzlies tonight, playing Conchar, rolling him out at like basically the 2, standing at like 6'9". So similar sort of style to like LA, the Lakers, Orlando, and the way that they play with those big guys. I think you can expect Fox to be able to get into the lane and get his tonight. And like I said, it's the road numbers for Fox that make me feel pretty good about his ability to carry them a little bit more on offense in the points column, especially since last season, 26 points per game on the road versus 22 at home. That usage rate, as we mentioned, goes up. They rely on him like 30.3% on the road since last season for Fox. So this is a good situation for him to continue to put up some points against Tyus Jones and the sort of depleted Memphis Grizzlies right now.
Yeah, and Tyus Jones is a very good floor general, capable point guard, but he's not the same athlete as John Morant at all. And I mean, nobody's stopping Fox from getting in the lane right now. He's having an absolute career year, probably going to make his first All-Star team for sure, if not an All-NBA team at this point. The road splits are pretty notable here as they try to keep pace with Memphis, which always plays well at home. So I think we're going to have a close game, and he's the number 1 clutch scorer. So great pick there. This one seems like a little bit sharp. Maybe I'm getting out of my boots here, ahead of my skis, if you will. But Cam Payne, under 28.5 points, rebounds, assists. I mean, he's been putting up some huge lines at times with Chris Paul out, cruising past this total. But Devin Booker went off when they were at Utah in a game that totaled 277, and Payne had 17 points, 5 assists, 0 rebounds. He's kind of in that Chris Paul role, right? He's just supposed to be a 1-for-1 replacement. And sometimes CP3, when the Suns have it in hand, he just brings the ball up, and when Book is cooking, he just gives the ball to Book. Book had like a 39% usage rate in that Utah game. He has lit up the Lakers recently. The last time Cam started for CP3, they beat the Lakers by 30, and Cam had 9 points, 11 assists, 4 rebounds on a 17% usage rate. When CP3 was in that role, again, they beat the Lakers pretty handily. CP had a 13% usage rate. The previous one, a 15% usage rate, 11, 3, and 9. I think the Suns point guard just isn't going to have to do that much in this game with the Suns up, 7.5 point favorites, with Booker and Bridges playing great ball, and the Lakers, not necessarily being a team to bank on forcing a close game down the stretch, especially with LeBron out.
Yeah, don't sleep on Austin Reeves, though. But no, for real, I love the theory. I love the research. I love the due diligence here to find out why it is that you feel campaign's going under. It's this situation, and this is a somewhat specific situation, but you've got some extrapolated info there in terms of it's the point guard against the Lakers for the Suns that doesn't seem to need to do a whole heck of a lot, especially when Book seems to love playing, right around his hometown in LA, like bringing it against the Lakers, to your point, and definitely it continues to bring it all season long this year. Book, definitely making a case for an All NBA team this year, at least second so far this season. I think he really is trying to take that next step, and he'll continue to get his with that usage rate at about like 35% against the Lakers. I think they all know we're playing his hometown team, feed Book, basically. So yeah, I think that doesn't bode quite as well for Campaign, who I did pick up in fantasy, but that's only because everybody on my team's hurt. So finishing things off here with our fourth prop, Jaden Ivey. We've talked about the Pistons, and we've gone after them with Cade out, right? And that's the key again tonight for Cade, going to be out in this one against the Nuggets, who will also be without Joker. So Jaden Ivey and Bogey both bringing it for the Pistons. Jaden Ivey looking really, really good right now. 18.5 points at -108 on FanDuel. You could throw the assists in there as well. He's been averaging about 5 assists a game over his last 5. It's about 5 for him. So if you want 23.5 points and assists, I might just consider the points here. Like I said, without Cade, 21.5 a game, 5 assists, 4 boards, right? Without Cade in general, his points per game go up from 15 to 19. In the last 5, it's gone all the way up to 21.2. I think that's a little bit more where you can see him. I think they've realized he and Bogey need to score 20 to 25 points each for them to continue to sort of hang with teams on offense, as they did with the Kings recently, at least on offense, and covered there. Nuggets are not great on defense right now. They already allow the best, if you will, assist to turnover ratio to their opponents. They're 30th in terms of their opponents' 2-point percentage, giving up 58% from the field from 2-pointers, good for dead last in the NBA. They allow the 5th most points in the paint as well. Jaden Ivey doing plenty of his work sort of from the point guard position, trying to slash and get in there as well. And they allow the most points, the 10th most points per game to point guards. Do the Nuggets 4th most assists. So you can expect the stats to be coming for Ivey tonight. Like I said, I'm not scared of the points and assists, but at -108 for the points at 18.5, I'll probably stick with that. But you can expect him to get a bunch of dimes in this game as well.
DeAndre Jordan is so bad, man. I can't believe that he's going to be starting for this team. There was that. Oh my God. He did have a nice 17 rebound game with 15 defensive rebounds in a absolute slugfest with the Mavs in their last game without Jokic, but that was a 1-point game. The Nuggets, I don't think, are going to be blowing anybody out, and they're particularly bad against point guards. So, yeah, Ivy should be getting all the work, that huge usage rate spike, and he should be scoring in this matchup.
For sure. Feel good about that one. You can also check out some Bogey Bogdanovich stats as well. There's some Bojan, excuse me. I always mess up the Bojan and Bogey thing. Bojan is on the Pistons. Consider his props as well. Sorry, Bogey. That is all the time we have for you in this one, Nate. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. We'll look to be staying about 3-1 on these props each and every night for you guys. So until we see you next, happy betting.